Good afternoon, everyone. Hopefully, you are doing well today. I am going to give my overview for Chapter 8, the last chapter we're going to spend together in this book. Chapter 8 is on people, places, and environments, so its focus is geography. Main topics, it's going to talk about geography skills for children, the key concepts in this chapter, that the earth is the place that we live, focusing on directions and locations, relationships within places, and spatial interactions. The last area that's covered is about regions. So the National Geography Standards, the Geography Education Standards Project in 1994 lists 5 skills that children begin developing during their preschool and primary years. So asking geographic questions, like where am I, what am I, what am I close to, what am I far from, acquiring geographic information, so about the places that they are, organizing geographic information, so understanding that they live in a mountains area or a desert area or whatever kind of region they might be in. Analyzing geographic information, so understanding that if I live in a cold environment, what am I going to have to be wearing? Answering geographic questions are the key topics for those kids. So Geography for Life and the National Council for Social Studies in 1998 have identified major themes and concepts key to the study of geography. The first of these concerns is the earth is where I live, and this includes our environment, land and water, caring for our earth, and an understanding that the earth is round and is part of our solar system. So understanding all of those pieces, and I think the first thing is understanding big picture to little picture of where we live. So thinking about myself, I live on the planet Earth, on the continent of North America, within the United States of America, within the state of Oregon, within the city of Gresham, on McKinley Street. So, that information then gets us closer. Talking about that I live an hour and a half away from the mountain, that I live an hour and a half away from the ocean, understanding what my geography looks like. There's some hills, but no major peaks. And so understanding around them. I think it's good to start big and come down, but really our focus is going to be looking again at their experiences. So that sense of direction and location develops as they experience his or her place in space and a result of movement exploration. And this leads to learning directional terms: forward, backwards, right, left. The concepts of distance and of distance and measurement are important to study the geography as well as day-to-day living. Experiences with measurement of distance should be informal, arbitrary, incidental, and based on actual experiences. So as we're talking about distance, how many steps away is the drinking fountain from where you're standing? How many kids standing with their arms straight out would it take for us to reach from one side of the room to the other? And then as kids get a little bit older, usually around 10, 11, where they can actually take the measurements and understand the feet or the yards or whatnot. Location, beginning with that language of on, under, near, far, next to, adjacent, and teaching those kinds of language words can be helpful also. Maps are abstracts of reality, and so the skills needed to read them and use them don't really develop until kids are in that formal operations around 11 or 12. And it's okay to include those. So like in our preschool, we've done some scavenger hunts with pictures of different areas that they would go to. We have them looking at some of the city maps those that usually tourists pick up that have, just a few drawings of the streets and maybe some of the locations that are along those streets. As kids get a little bit older, then you can actually use larger maps and have them look at that. Some really cool sites that you might want to pull up for kids to look at is Google Earth, and you can look at the street view, and so you can actually 360 turn around for some spaces. And also the National Geographic Society has wonderful resources on their site. Geographers study how humans and the environment are related, what advantages and disadvantages are present for human settlement, and how people modify and adapt to their environment. So young children can be introduced to those ideas that humans have taken control of the environment, but at the same time are controlled by the environment. So with this, looking at housing, the clothing, how people have, built into mountains, how they, the different structures that they have depending on where they live. And those are ways that you can explore the environment and how that interacts with where people are living. A part of the study of geography is that people interact from far away from other people, and we depend on other places for food, clothing, and even items like pencils and paper. And so we probably don't want to get into the whole from overseas we get stuff, but Idaho potatoes, where are we getting, instead of just the grocery store, where are we getting the food that's in the grocery store? Where is it made? And then looking at those different places. And lastly, the chapter goes over region. And a region is an area that includes a number of places, all which have something in common. So they categorize regions in a number of basic ways. Two are with physical and cultural. Physical regions are defined by climate. So what's the weather like? Landform or vegetation. So if we live in the city or the suburbs or a rural area, or we live in the mountain area or a desert area, or lots of different areas that we can live in. And so what is that like? If we lived in Miami, Florida, our region is going to look a lot different than any region in Oregon. A cultural region has cultural and historical continuity that separates it from other adjacent or distinct regions. And in the book, it talks about different ways to address those. And so for cultural regions, it's how do they live, and what are the traditions that they do, and what are those based on? Oftentimes it's based on climate and the physical region information, but what else could that be? So a couple different ways that teaching kids this: doing field trips, just walking outside and looking in the neighborhood and trying to figure out what is around, observing the housing, observing the landforms that are around, and then comparing to other areas. And so you could go outside and look around and take note of those things, and then you can come back in and maybe get on Google Earth and look at some completely different region and look, what do the houses look like? What do the people, how are they behaving? What are the activities that they do in those different areas? So hopefully that gives you a little bit to think about while you're starting to read chapter 8. And I hope that you have enjoyed learning some of this information about our book and social studies for the preschool and primary child. Thank you very much.